Lately, I've been trying to figure out the meaning of my own existence. And I know that that sounds super existential and all of those things, but as I have been going on my journey of personal development and elevating myself and my consciousness, I have been asking myself some really hard questions around what it truly means to live in the present moment and facing some difficult concepts like my own mortality, aka my death and the death of the ones that I love. And I asked myself this really difficult question of who or what am I living for? And if I did not have those things or those people, would I want to continue living? And I was really blown away and honestly in tears by the answer because I did not recognize that I had been attaching my meaning of my existence to things that were outside of my control, to things that were temporary and fleeting instead of something that is more permanent, which is the concept of self. Now, I know that I'm not the only one that's going through this. I've seen this play out in other people's lives, but in ways that they don't even notice. Like I've been doing this for almost 28 years, and I did not even notice that I was doing that until I slowed down long enough to really ask myself the deeper questions. So, what I want to do is just talk you through my journey, talk you through the revelations that I've had, because honestly, this literally happened yesterday, and I was journaling and bawling tears as I recognize what truly deep down I was attaching my existence to. So, I really want to just be vulnerable and share that journey with you guys, and hopefully, you can apply it to your own journeys. So, in order to do that, I want to ask you a question before I even get into it. I want you to ask yourself this question of who or what am I living for? Who or what am I living for? Because this question is what broke me wide open. So, I'm going to, in this video, explain to you my answer to that question and where that answer came from and how it's rooted in survival instead of in expansion, and the journey of finding meaning and how to actually practice that in your day to day life. Okay, so let me get a sip of tea. I did tea today instead of water because water was, it wasn't doing it. Mm, that's it's like this cherry blossom green tea. Delicious. And I'm sorry if y'all can hear a bunch of mowers and stuff. It's like everybody in the neighborhood just decided to mow their grass today. Who knew? If you do not know me, my name is Nia Love. I am a content creator. And yes, I know that normally I make content around marriage and relationships, but I'm going to talk about that in this video as well, of how I'm shifting the way that I present myself and my relationship with the internet and my platform and my content for personal reasons that once again I will get to. But the point is, I'm normally a marriage and relationships influencer or content creator, but I am going to be shifting more towards like just doing whatever it is I want, just me myself being the brand and whatever it is I want to talk about, whatever I want to share, and making this less of like a coaching and a teaching platform and more of like a diary. I really just want to give you guys the ins and outs of what I think, what I'm going through, how I process things, so that maybe you can apply it to your own lives, because I tend to be a very introspective person. I've spent every day of the last year doing some type of internal introspection and internal work. So I like to share my ideals, share my findings with you guys to kind of stimulate your own minds, have you ask the hard questions in your own life so that you can, take whatever I find and find it within yourself and apply it to your life for the better. Okay. So let's start. Presence and mortality. So lately, I've been going on a journey of figuring out what it means to be present and practicing presence. So I know that I have a tendency to be a bad listener because I'm a big dreamer and I'm a little ADHD. So my brain just kind of does whatever it wants to do. It's constantly ideating, constantly creating, constantly like looking towards the future. So one thing that I've been practicing is slowing down long enough to be present in every moment. What triggered this was I saw a piece of content where they were saying that in some African cultures, they don't even have a word for future. So in some African languages, they don't even have a word for future. They have no concept of the future. They believe that time is created in the moment, not that you have an abundance of time or that time is continual and that it keeps going. It's more so time is created every time you choose to do something with your time, right? So, me sitting here and talking to you, I am creating time as I am using that time. So, there is no concept of the future. So, they don't have all of these crazy like ambitions or like this grind culture that you see in a lot of American culture, a lot of American culture. And I understand because that was definitely my jam for a very long time. I'm very future minded. So, this idea of slowing down long enough and anchoring myself in the present as if the next few minutes don't exist was conceptually confusing to me because as I was starting to live in the moment as if the next few moments weren't promised, because that is true. Like, even though I'm recording this video right now, a plane could fall out the sky and crash into this house and my life would be over. No moment is promised. So to be present is to recognize and accept that the next moments are not promised. And that can cause a lot of fear, grief, anxiety, and dread because that is what I have been going through for the past few weeks. Is I would be in the moment. For example, I would be laying with my husband, I'd be cuddled up, and I'm like, ooh, let me just really anchor into this moment. Let me appreciate it. And then I start to recognize that, oh shit, this moment is not going to last forever. There's going to be a day where I don't have my husband. And then I start going down this whole road about, oh my God, one day I'm going to lose my husband. How am I going to survive? Like, what's going to happen? And so it robs me of my present. But as I was doing some more research into ways that other cultures conceptualize this, a part of accepting presence is to be face to face with death. In order for you to truly be present, you have to accept that your time is finite. You have to make peace with your own mortality. As a dreamer, I'm constantly thinking about the future. I have all of these plans, all of these ambitions, all of these goals, right? And because I'm so steadfast focused on the future, time almost seems infinite. However, because I believe that time is infinite, I'm always rushing to the next thing. Like, oh, okay, I accomplished a goal, next goal. Accomplish a goal, next dream, next vision, whatever it is. Instead of appreciating that this moment right now is finite and that I have to appreciate it for what it is right now in the now. So it was a very scary revelation for me to come face to face with. And I started to ask myself these deep questions about, okay, what happens if I do lose my husband? What happens if I do lose my ambitions? What happens if when I do reach all of my goals and everything is finished, when the vision is complete, where I've served enough people, whatever it is, what happens when this all ends? Would I still want to live? And this is where the tears started to come because I recognize that for me, when it comes to my husband, and this is going to sound extremely toxic, it's going to sound extremely toxic, but I want you guys to be careful of judging me, okay? I want you guys to be extremely careful of judging me because there's probably something that you are also anchoring to that you do not recognize it. It's just that mine is my husband. So I sat with myself and I recognized if my husband were to die today, I would be faced with the hard decision of living and overcoming that grief versus choosing to also leave with him. And I know that may sound crazy. However, I really sat with myself and asked, if I lost my husband today, I know that I could go through the grief. I know that I could go through the healing. I know that I could get to another side. The question is, would I want to? If I lost my husband, would I want to keep living? What would I be living for at that point? So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'd be living for my purpose. Maybe it would be within my destiny to have lost my husband in order to heal from it so that I could help other people heal from it. Okay, maybe then that would be my reason to keep going. But once that is gone, then what is my reason to keep living from there? What if I lost my husband later in life when we're like 90 years old? You know what I'm saying? After we've already done all the things, after we've done all of the goals and the dreams and the visions and the ambitions, all of those things, I lose him at 90 and I'm sitting there with myself, well, like, I ain't got no ambitions. I really just wanted to spend the rest of my days just enjoying my husband. But now that my husband is no longer here, what am I living for? Is it the kids? The problem is that all of those things are fleeting. All of those things are fleeting. So the reality is loss is going to happen. Death is going to come for everybody. That's just, it is what it is. However, in order for me to truly appreciate and accept the present, I have to figure out what it is that I am living for. And I cannot live for something finite, or else my life, my existence, my meaning would also be finite. Crazy, right? I know this is getting really deep. This is getting really deep already. So I started to ask myself, now that I know that if I lost my husband, I would be faced with whether I want to continue living or not, because he is a big part of my meaning and my existence. Is that wrong? Now, look, I'm just a very introspective person. I just ask myself a lot of great questions, because I could sit here and I could judge myself for that realization, but that's not going to help me, because this realization, this belief came from somewhere. My attachment of meaning to his existence came from somewhere. So instead of judging myself, I have to ask myself, is that even wrong in the first place? What does it mean to be right or wrong? What am I supposed to be anchoring my existence in? So that sent me down a whole nother journey of figuring out the root, okay? The problem isn't that my thinking is wrong. The problem is that it is rooted in survival mentality. The problem isn't that my thinking is wrong. The problem is that it is rooted in survival mentality. I adopted this attachment of meaning to my husband, my ambitions, my dreams, my goals, my visions, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, as a means of survival. What do you mean by that, Nia? What does it mean to anchor it? What were you trying to survive? Right? So, I've shared this before, but I endured a lot of internal suffering as a child, where by middle school, high school, I started to even question if it was worth it, if living was worth it. Now, I have explained before that I am an empath. And so I was a hypersensitive, emotional person, child, growing up in a world where emotions and sensitivity were looked at as negatives. So instead of learning to accept myself for who I am, I was taught that how I thought, everything, the turmoil, the chaos that was going on within me was wrong. And so it just continued to contribute to my own suffering. Not only was I suffering in my own mind and in my own emotions, I was now suffering in my relationships because my outer world is just a reflection of my internal world. So now I'm having a hard time making friends. I'm not having good dating experiences. I'm going through a lot of lying and cheating and manipulation and abuse and all of those things because I was never taught to accept my internal world. Therefore, I adopted from a very young age that my meaning of my existence is just meant to suffer. The meaning of my existence is simply to suffer. And then as I got older and I started to talk more about my suffering, now my belief became my existence is meant to suffer and use that suffering to help others. I want you to recognize the reason why I even adopted this from the beginning was to give my suffering purpose. I recognized when I moved to college that I thought that me moving to college, me starting a whole new life, that would be the ending to my suffering. No, my suffering followed me. And I recognized that my suffering was all internal. Therefore, I could never run. So that is why I tried to take my own life at the age of 18, because I recognized that all of my suffering is within my own head and I cannot escape my mind. Therefore, do I even want to continue living? And I know that sounds super sad. I know that sounds super depressing, but this was my life. The only reason why I kept living is because I started to talk about what I was going through and recognizing that other people were benefiting from what I was going through. Other people were connecting with me. Other people were feeling heard and safe and saved because of me sharing my story. So now I was anchoring my meaning of my existence into my servitude. And that sounds super noble. I know that it does. But even then, that can be exhausting. That can be emptying. And I will talk more about the consequences of this mentality a little bit later. But after that, then I discovered entrepreneurship. And I recognized, oh, I can make a lot of money. I can be wealthy. I can have all of these dreams. I can do whatever it is I want. I can be free if I pursue this lane. So now the meaning for my existence became attached to, oh, I have some goal, some ambition, some business idea, something. Then that became the reason that I woke up every day. And then I met my husband. And then he became the reason that I woke up every day because for once in my life, I was not alone. I spent 21 years before I met my husband living in a world where I felt like nobody understood me, where nobody saw me for who I was, that everybody looked at me like I was some type of burden, like I was so crazy that, oh, you need to stay away from her because she got daddy issues, she got mommy issues, she's depressed. We need to excommunicate her. We need to bully her. We need to deny her. All because everything that I was going through, I had been going through a life where I had been rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected simply because I was misunderstood. So imagine living in a life where no one, not even your own parents, sibling, whatever it was, nobody understands you. And because nobody understands you, they abuse you and they bully you and they push you away. They keep you out. Would you want to live too? Would you want to live? I didn't. But I anchored into, okay, I'm helping people. Okay, I have all of these goals and these dreams of what could possibly be for times that aren't in the present. I know my present sucks and I know I'm suffering. However, I see hope for a better future, so I can live for that. I can live for a better tomorrow. That is enough. And then when I met the man of my dreams, when I met someone that could finally be my other half and finally see me, I can live for that. But then I come to the problem of, if I lost all of that, then what would I be living for? Oh, God. I know we get caught up in this concept of right and wrong, but in my head, there is no right or wrong. It's simply action and consequence. We could judge people for the way that they act, for the way that they think, for what they believe. We can say that that's wrong. However, we do not see the fact that they came to those conclusions because a series of actions from their parents, from their grandparents, from their great grandparents that contributed to who they are and why they make certain decisions and why they think the way that they do. The reason that I attached my meaning to my husband, the reason why I attach my meaning to my husband's existence is because I needed to survive. We can all agree that taking somebody else's life is wrong, right? However, if it's meant for survival, if it came down to your life and that person's, now all of a sudden it's not wrong, it's self-defense. So here's what I mean by do not be quick to judge people because they are likely adopted the way that they behave and the way that they think out of survival because they had no choice. These were the cards that they were dealt. However, now that I am no longer in survival, now that I am aware of these things, now I can start to detach myself from the tools that I used to use to survive that no longer serve me. These tools were great. My attachment to my husband was great for getting me through the times where I had no other reason to live. But now that I am no longer in survival mode, I can start to attach myself and my identity to things that are more eternal. So, let's talk about the consequences. The consequences of attaching my identity to my husband, my ambitions, to my vision, my dreams, to servitude. I have found myself so extremely exhausted. So, again, if you're new, my husband became the sole provider around this time last year. So, I've been a stay-at-home wife for a full year. And I have been spending that year figuring out who I am, what's holding me back, who am I when I remove my need to perform, to make money, to save everybody. Who am I when I remove all of that? That has been the big question in the journey that I have been on. And one thing that has been constantly coming up for me that I haven't been able to figure out is my relationship with my content. My relationship with my content. So right now, I am at 93.5 thousand followers. And I have been sitting at 93.5 for months. And look, God sends you signs. The universe sends you signs that something is not right. And I knew that this was a sign because I literally have a video reaching 1 million views right now. Normally, when I have a video that's going viral, my followers go up crazy with it, right? But this time, that is not the case. I've had several videos go viral recently, and still my follower count has stayed at 93.5 thousand. So I know that it's not logical. I know it has nothing to do with the numbers or the content or whatever it is. This has to be a spiritual boundary. This has to be a spiritual withholding. So why is God withholding me from 100,000 followers? Why is God withholding 100,000 followers from me? And I recognize it is because I have been anchoring my meaning into my impact. And those numbers represent my impact. For me, those numbers, those followers mean to me how many people are impacted by my story, by my lessons, by my teachings, by my vulnerability. I was looking for a way to make my vulnerability worth it. I was looking for a way to make my suffering worth it. If I can talk about it, if I can put it out here, if I can share with everybody, then that means that my existence, everything that I've gone through, is worth it. But the problem is, I kept getting hit with, now that my views are slowing down, now that I'm starting this YouTube journey and I don't really have many views, and I'm recording these hour-long videos just for like 10 people to watch it and nobody to comment or like on it. And I started to thinking to myself, okay, then why am I doing this? If it's not helping anybody, if nobody's watching it, then why am I exhausting myself to do this? And that shine light, that was God shining light. God slowing down my views, slowing down my follower counts, was him shedding light on where I needed to expand in order to receive more abundance without losing myself. One thing I love about my God, and when I say that, I am not Christian, I mean the God that all of us are connected to and attached to, okay? But one thing I love about my God is that it protects me from self-destruction. My God protects me from self-destruction. When I get so caught up in getting to the next goal, getting to the next phase, God slows it down because it does not want me to get lost in that. It knows my heart and that I desire a freedom and abundance that is much greater than wealth, than numbers, than whatever it is. Therefore, I had to slow down to learn this lesson, that I was attaching the meaning of my existence and why I create content to servitude, which sounds noble. But if the numbers aren't numbering, then you feel like you aren't really serving anybody. And then now you're just exhausting yourself and you're being vulnerable for no reason, it seems. So the consequence of attaching the meaning of my existence to my servitude is that I will never serve enough to justify my existence. I will never achieve enough to justify my existence. I will never love enough to justify my existence. None of those things are good enough justification for me to exist, because they're temporary, they're fleeting, they're unpredictable, they're uncontrollable. Therefore, I find myself constantly chasing these ambitions, this love, these dreams, whatever it is, my servitude, because I myself am searching for a reason to keep living. And because I do not have a reason to keep living that is eternal, then I will constantly feel drained and like everything is never enough. Ah! So what do we do about it? I hope that me sharing this has made you recognize within your own self, maybe like share in the comments, like, is there something, what is it that you have been attached to? I'm not here to judge you. Obviously, I'm not here to judge you. You are simply a product of the actions of others. You were literally brought into this world and became a victim of your upbringing, your parents, your circumstances, or whatever it is. And the way that you think and behave is likely attached to that, which was completely out of your control. You do not know what you do not know. So if I've educated you that you on something that maybe you did not know about, something that you're attached to, something that you attach your existence to, then let me know. Let me know that I'm not alone, okay? Because the world will make you feel like you are just the worst for being imperfect and for not having the answers from the beginning. And this is coming from someone, once again, I'm close to 100,000 followers. So that means I get a lot of hate, right? I get a lot of negative comments and stuff. And what I recognize is that the world is full of imperfect people judging others for being imperfect. So I'm imperfect. So I have no reason to judge you for being imperfect. I think that that is absolute insanity. Okay. And the next time an imperfect person judges you for being imperfect, go ahead and dismiss that, because you know for sure that they haven't even accepted themselves. They haven't even accepted their own imperfections, which is why they judge you for yours. And that's T. I'm pretty sure y'all getting all that ASMR. But okay. So, the journey of meaning, what does that look like? And I took notes for this part because this is actually like some educational stuff, and I don't want to mess it up. So, the journey of meaning. There are 5 phases. Now, people think that the growth journey, the journey of life, is a straight line, right? But the journey of life is actually cyclical. It goes in cycles, but like it's spiraling upwards. Like you're constantly, I mean, if you're on the right path of ascension and growth, then you will be ascending, but you ascend in cycles. You go through the same phases, you go through the same lessons until they are mastered, until you get to the end of your life. And then you carry on that into the next life, unless it's whatever you believe about the afterlife. Point is that the journey is cyclical. So it's not in a straight line. You will be going through these phases in and out on your journey searching for meaning, unless you've just completely achieved nirvana and you are a Buddhist monk meditating in a temple somewhere in the eastern hemisphere of the world, okay? But if you are not, then you will constantly go through the same cycle. So here's what that cycle looks like. Number 1, survival meaning. So this is the first phase. This is when you attach your meaning to whatever it needs to in order to survive. So this is when you have external anchors that you attach to. So my survival meaning phase is when I attached my meaning to keep living, especially after, I survived trying to take my own life. I anchored in servitude. I anchored in relationships. I anchored in ambitions and entrepreneurship, whatever it was. I anchored in things outside of me, my hopes and dreams, looking forward, just to keep me going, just to give me a reason to keep waking up day after day. Okay. The next phase is borrowed meaning. So this is when you start to associate your meaning with the action of proving yourself. So you're trying to prove yourself through your ambition, through your relationships, through your servitude, that you are worth living. So I had a tendency to think to myself like, well, if I'm not impacting the world, then what am I here for? If I'm not making someone's life better, then what am I here for? If I'm not living for some type of dream goal, then what am I living for? That is that borrowed meaning. Next, you have shattered meaning. So this is the moment where all of the anchors that you were used to attaching yourself to, those external anchors, come crashing down. So that's what I was going through yesterday when I recognized that, okay, if I lost all of these things, who am I? So my perception of what was grounding me, what was anchoring me to my existence, broke. And now I'm left with the pieces like, oh shit. Okay, now why do I live? After that is inner meaning. So after you look at all the pieces and you recognize that those external anchors cannot hold you anymore, you get to a place that I am now understanding, that I am now getting to, which is anchoring meaning within yourself. I deserve to exist because I exist. The justification of my existence is simply because I am. I am because I am. I don't have to be, do, or have anything to justify existing. I simply exist because I exist. And that I know that is so hard, at least for me, to wrap my head around. And I recognize that the reason why I have a hard time conceptualizing this is because my parents never taught me that I was worthy simply for existing. I didn't get attention unless I was striving, unless I was getting good grades. That was the only time that I was truly getting praise and affection and attention from my parents. So now I associated my worth and my existence to this reward. And that's just a tidbit for people who have kids, understanding kids. Kids only think in terms of reward and consequence, right? So either they're getting a reward or they're getting a punishment. That's what I meant. Reward and punishment. Kids only think in reward and punishment. Either they're getting a reward or they're getting punished. They don't have the mentality, the brain yet that has developed enough to understand logically what is happening. All they know is when I do this, I get a reward or I get punished. That's it. That is literally the limitations of their thinking. So it's really important in a child's development to remind them that simply being themselves is enough. If you keep associating all of their actions to reward and punishment, reward and punishment, reward and punishment, they are going to adapt to this way of living and thinking. That you're going to domesticate them into believing that they're only accepted when they act a certain way, when they behave a certain way, instead of being accepted simply because they exist, simply because they breathe. So because I got so caught up in this reward system of I only get love, I only get attention, I'm only appreciated when I succeed, when I get good grades, all of these things, now it's hard for me to accept the fact that I can just exist and that be enough. Ugh. Ain't that some wild stuff? So now I'm personally going on a journey of, and I'm sorry, I'm like sweating because I opened this window and I got the sun beaming in on me and all that stuff. But so I'm a little sweaty. But it is what it is. Anyway, I've been so for me, I have been studying like how other cultures view it, how other like belief systems, other religions view the idea of meaning. I know for me, Christianity was never something that like really stood out to me and like I attached to, because like in Christianity, your existence is meaningful simply because you are God's creation. Right? That is the concept, but that just never like it never told the whole story for me. But there are African cultures that believe, you are part of the community. The reason why you have meaning is because you are part of the whole. You are part of the whole web, whether that be from your ancestors to your spirit guides to your community, the earth and the plants and the trees, the animals, because you are a part of this interconnected web, and without you, there is a hole. So, and there are other like stoicism, which says that you have meaning through who you are, as like through your character. Your character is what gives you meaning and what makes your purpose or your existence purposeful, is the way that you exemplify your character. So yeah, either way, I've been going through my own studying of trying to figure out in a way that clicks for me, what does it mean to live and what is my existence truly? And I'm still going on that journey, and I'm going to talk to you about ways that I am practicing that in my day-to-day life to help me further ingrain that in my brain, because it is a practice. Knowledge is not embodiment. Knowledge is not embodiment. Just because I know inherently that I am because I am doesn't mean that it is within my nervous system, that is within my body, within my subconscious, that it has become a part of me. Embodiment comes from consistent practice. So I will be talking about ways that I am practicing embodying this idea of worth and meaning in my own existence. So we went to survival meaning, borrowed meaning, shattered meaning, inner meaning, and now overflowing meaning. So the thing is that I have been creating and serving from a place of brokenness. I have been creating and serving from a borrowed meaning place, from a this is what gives my life meaning place. And that will put you in a place of constantly chasing meaning. However, when you are in overflowing meaning, you already are anchored within your own existence, within your own internal self, that you have meaning. You're already anchored. Therefore, you're not searching for an anchor in anything else that you do, whether that be a relationship, a goal, a dream, creating content, whatever it is. Because you already have meaning anchored within you, you're not searching for it in anything external. Therefore, you can serve, you can dream, you can love from a place of overflow rather than from a place of lack. So now that I'm going on this journey between shattered meaning and inner meaning, now that I am understanding my own inherent meaningful existence, then now I can create and produce content from a place of I genuinely just have overflow. And I can already tell just from having this one video, this one conversation, that my content already feels much different than it did last week. Because now it doesn't feel exhausting. It doesn't feel like I am trying to prove something or that I'm chasing something. Now it just feels like I'm just going to put it out there, and whatever happens, happens. If they like it, awesome. Their eyes, them seeing me, has nothing to do with my meaning. Whether this goes viral or not has nothing to do with my meaning. Whether this helps anybody, if nobody watches this video, it gets 0 views. That has nothing to do with my meaning. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. So, the last thing. What does practicing this daily look like? So I got 4 things. First, morning affirmations. So I did that this morning, where the first thing that I woke up, normally I just like lay there, or I'll go straight to like journaling about my dreams or whatever it is. But instead, this morning when I woke up, instead of jumping straight out of bed and just getting into my day, I sat with myself and I reminded myself of who I am, that my existence is meaningful. I just laid there and reminded myself, reminding my body that I am safe, that I am loved simply for existing, simply for being. That there is nothing that I could do or have or be more of to justify my existence even more than it has already been justified, simply because I woke up this morning. So just laying there and focusing on my breath, being present in that moment right when I wake up, and being thankful that I have another day to exist simply because I am. The second practice is just little reminders of presence throughout the day. So normally we be rushing through things. Like one thing I notice about myself is that I rush when I brush my teeth. Like I have an electric toothbrush. So you're supposed to just like hold it in place and, let it do its own work over each individual tooth and all of those things. But like I still be like manually brushing my teeth because I just be in such a rush. Like I've been in such like a forward moving fast pace that I'm not anchoring myself in the present. So I have to slow down. When you slow down and you practice presence, time actually slows down for you. I feel like if you live a life of presence, your life is actually longer than someone who does not, because your experience feels much longer. Time is a concept that is relative to whoever, I don't necessarily want to say it, but time is relative to whatever you're measuring it against. There we go. Time is relative to whatever you're measuring it against. So if you are present, you can actually slow down your concept of time. When you are constantly dreaming and being ambitious and rushing and going after goals, constantly jumping to the next thing, it's almost like you're speeding up your time because you're trying to get to the next thing as fast as possible. You're not anchoring in the present. So it feels like you're actually losing time rather than gaining time, which is what you do when you are present. So it helps to anchor small little moments throughout the day, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're combing your hair, when you're putting lotion on your skin, when you take a moment from your work to just step outside and breathe in the fresh air, taking those little moments to just tap back into your body, tap back into the moment, and recognize that you're here, and being grateful that you are here and that you simply exist. You have to find the happiness and the love in those little moments, because the next moment is not promised. And if you died tomorrow and you were looking forward to all of these dreams and all of these things, you were waiting until you achieved something in order to be happy, and you died tomorrow, then was your life, did you really live a full life? If you anchor in the present, then life becomes more full. Even if it ends short, quote unquote, it would still feel full and worth living. Third thing, asking myself before I do anything, before I get into a relationship, before I start pursuing a new goal, before I put content out there, before whatever it is, I start asking myself, does this feel true to me? Not because I'm trying to serve anybody, not because I'm trying to prove anything, not because I'm trying to reach 100,000 followers or $100,000 or whatever it is. Simply asking myself, does this action feel true to me? Is what I'm saying feel true to me? Me creating this video, like, I know it has nothing to do with my quote unquote brand. It might not go viral. It may not do any numbers. I have no idea. I might be talking to my damn self right now. But even if I am talking to myself, this feels true to me. This feels very true to me, because I'm being vulnerable and open and honest about something that I just want to share. I just want to share because I thought it was such an amazing revelation, and it just needs to be heard. It just needs to be heard. Even if it's only by me, it needs to be heard. And then the last thing is ending your day in stillness. So laying to your bed, instead of scrolling on your phone until you get tired, or watching TV until you get tired, or whatever it is, turning everything off, not listening to music, nothing, and laying there and breathing. I have the I Breathe app on my phone, and it does 6, 4, 7, 8. I don't remember it's 4, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, some, or 4, 8, 7. I don't know. Whatever the number is. Whatever the numbers are, it's a breathing technique where you inhale for 4 seconds, I think hold for 8, and exhale for like 6. Whatever the numbers are, you get it. Anyway, so I'll lay in my bed and I turn on my app, and I'll do like 12 rounds of that style of breathing, just to like calm my nervous system and to bring me back into my body, bring me back into the present, and ending my day in stillness, letting my nervous system calm down, letting my brain calm down after over functioning with all of this constant stimulation of our modern day society and technology and all of those things. And just allowing myself to be present in the moment and remind myself that this moment is all that I have. So let me appreciate it. Let me appreciate it for what it is right now. So those are the 4 daily practices that I am now implementing into my life in order to practice more presence, to be more accepting of my mortality, and to anchor in something internal rather than external for meaning of my existence. To close this out, in conclusion, I am so glad that I had this revelation now. Because ever since I had this revelation, I know it's only been a day, but the idea of death does not scare me as much. The idea of losing my husband does not scare me as much. The idea of losing my platform, losing my followers, losing anything, the money, the house, it does not scare me as much. And this is the true state of nirvana, when you can detach yourself from the things that you love, the things that you care about. And I'm not saying that those things aren't important, but those things are fleeting. And at the end of the day, when you are on your deathbed, you have to go through that journey by yourself. Do you want to go through that journey by yourself from a place of knowing that your existence internally was enough, that your life was enough? Or do you want to go to bed going to your deathbed feeling unfulfilled, like there was nothing that in this life, even though you've had wonderful things, it was still not enough to fill a hole in your heart? I feel like this is now the realization, the revelation that has brought me closer to peace. And I'm not saying that I'm going to die tomorrow. I hope not. I really hope not. I really hope that I get to have 80 more years of being with my husband, building a family, building our businesses, building our dreams, impacting lives, helping others. I want 80 more years at least of that. However, if it ended all tomorrow, I would have been one step closer to peace. And I'm hoping that in that moment, I could make peace in knowing that I was enough. That the time that I served, the time that I was here, that was enough. All right. So I love you guys so much. And I'll catch you next time.